What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to episode 58 of the Silver and Gold. I'm Josh.
And I'm Mike.
And today, it's not just a normal episode. We've got some breaking news. The Raiders have fired offensive coordinator Luke Getsy. And Mike has been waiting for this day for a long time, at least 9 weeks now. Or maybe a little less, because maybe Mike, at what point as a Raider fan did you feel that it was time to get rid of Luke Getsy?
The Panthers game, week 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're in week 9 right now. That should pretty much tell you everything that you need to know.
Yeah. It needed to happen. Granted, there's a stupid part of me as a Raider fan that's hoping for the first overall pick that thinks that they should have waited until the end of the season. And I think maybe a part of that, just from a overall standpoint of who's on the coaching staff, like, I don't know who's going to take over play calling duties. I don't know if it's going to be Joe Philbin. I don't know. I want to say Marvin Lewis was a defensive guy. Scangarello.
No, dude. Okay. So there's other firings in here. Scangarello's gone too.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So according to Josh Dubow, it's not just Luke Getsy who's out for the Raiders. They also fired offensive line coach James Craig and quarterbacks coach Rich Scangarello, who I already did not like. I did not like him.
Yeah, you were already off on him from the get-go once he was hired. And then James Craig, I mean, I don't think he had been a full-time offensive line coach in the NFL yet. I know he was an assistant with the Niners as recently as last year. But judging by the way that the offensive line was playing this season, yeah, that needed to happen. So, I mean, these were moves that I was just begging. Like, if we got to week 18, final snap of the game, these 3 names would have been the first chess pieces for me to be begging to get off the board. So the fact that they've already done it is great. I just don't want, like, Desmond Ridder had a touchdown at the end of this Bengals game. We'll get back to that later, but I don't want it to be like, oh, Desmond Ridder and whoever the new offensive play caller is, just, they're not going to save the season. It's way too far gone. But save the season, and they get these useless ass wins that we don't want them to get because we need them to lose. I'm not trying to seem like I'm complaining about things that they need to do. Like, I'm happy they're doing it. This feels to me like probably one of 2 or 3 people. Either Antonio Pierce is fed up, which he should be, because his job's on the line, and these 3 guys might be costing him his job, legit.
Yep.
Or it could be Mark Davis, because he's the owner, and maybe he stepped in and just said, you know what? Something's got to happen. Something's got to change. This is ridiculous. Or maybe even Tom Telesco stepped in and said, you know what? Clearly things aren't working. Look at what happened today. Look at what's been happening since week 3. Somebody, I think Antonio Pierce, just decided, all right, enough is enough. And I do not blame them at all. It's the right move.
He finally made some business decisions. One thing I will say is I want to be very clear. We're not over here, trying to shit on Luke Getsy, Rich Scangarello, and James Craig as people. I understand they're human too, and like, it sucks they just lost their jobs. But I mean, to me, it kind of felt like a square peg in a round hole. It just wasn't the right fit. And I don't know, dude. Like, I mean, since the beginning of the season, I thought maybe it was a problem with the offensive line, but really, there was something systematically going wrong with their offensive, their run blocking. They they had, I don't know how many plays that I saw early on where they they were double teaming guys and not working to the second level, and they just could not get anything going. I thought maybe we could write it off as a couple tough matchups, like maybe the Steelers early on. But I mean, like you said with the Panthers game, they should have been able to run all over the Panthers, and they couldn't.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, my thing when they hired James Craig was like, "Oh, cool, like, you're telling me we're gonna get, like, the Shanahan sort of blocking scheme? That means they should be good at running the football." Right? Eventually, when, like, they integrate that well, but they were switching schemes completely, and I wonder if that's part of the reason why they, failed to be successful. But then again, teams change schemes all the time, and it's not this bad. So, I think it was a little mix of, getting the wrong coaches, getting the wrong play caller, and getting inexperienced coaches who have never been in charge of this before, namely James Craig. Not to take a massive dump on him, it's just look at what this season has been so far. Like the tail of the tape has been the offensive line sucks. It's holding back the run game, all this shit, right? So yeah, yeah, I just don't want them to start winning games. I swear to God, dude, this is gonna suck. Like right now, okay?
You
Uh,
want that high draft pick.
yeah, you sent me the tweet from Josh Dubow where it was like per the Tankathon or whatever the website is, and there's
Mhm.
like 6 teams that are tied at 2 and 7 right now. One of them being the Raiders. The Raiders are currently at the 5th overall pick. Like, they need to have I mean, as the season progresses, the, strength of schedule will change for these teams, but like, as of right now, if the season ended today, we're tied for the worst record in football, and we get the 5th pick. Let's look at those top 4 teams. Like, who of those teams are drafting a quarterback? I'll give you one, the Saints. You could
Yeah,
argue
the
Panthers.
Saints,
I think the
Panthers,
Browns would. The Browns absolutely would. And then, God
the
forbid, the Giants get in
Giants.
front of us. They absolutely will. So, and there are other teams. There are absolutely other teams. I think the Rams, if they were in the predicament, like if they were still, one in whatever they were a couple weeks ago, I think they'd be drafting a quarterback next year. And there's others.
Mhm.
So I just the Raiders need to be like top 2. I'm serious. Like there's no other way.
Where would you rank this dumpster fire of a season, Mike? Like in recent memory, is this arguably the worst?
Oh.
I think
Um
this is easily worse than how they started last year with Josh McDaniels.
yeah, yeah, because they were still like winning a couple games with him. Like the Packers game. I you're saying the worst like what in the past 10 years or ever?
Yeah, like let's just say maybe past 5 years. To
Oh,
keep it
past
short.
5 years? Yeah, I would like it's weird, okay? It is the worst, and yet for me, it's like, well, this is what we needed, you know? Like, although it's the worst, it's like they need the worst to get back to being the best, of what they can be. They need this, really. Um, and it's what I've been saying since we started this podcast, like 2 seasons ago or however many seasons ago, a season and a half ago. Uh, they need to draft a quarterback, and a season like this is how you do that. So even like really, this is the worst season the Raiders have had, at least so far. Like from a projection standpoint, we're halfway through the season since probably the Jamarcus Russell years. The at most recent, the first or maybe second year of John Gruden's tenure when he really blew shit up. Like we just traded Khalil Mack, we just traded Cooper, we end out with like 4 wins on the season. That's the
I
only one I could think of.
I feel like there was a year at least with Dennis Allen as head coach where it
Yeah,
was horrible. And
it was
didn't the Raiders
horrible.
only win 2 games all year? Something like that, and they didn't win till like week 10
That
or
checks out. You might be thinking like Tony Sparano season when they fired they fired Dennis Allen in London, like coming back from London. Uh, I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and look. Yes, there were bad. There was at least one bad year with Dennis Allen. I mean, really, all of them were bad, but
there was like a
you know,
year where they almost went winless.
yeah, yeah. That was Derek Carr's first season, 2014. I want to say.
Yeah, so in the past 10 years, this is probably right there with, just horrible. There's horrible quarterback play, horrible offensive line play. Um, yeah, and then
You know what
trading away
makes
one of
this
your best players. It's just it's bad.
Yeah, and you know what makes this the worst of all those seasons though, is that this was the team that wasn't expected to be that bad. Like I think the John Gruden early seasons and trading away a Khalil Mack and an Amari Cooper, you're expected to play like shit. It's a brand new system. Oh, we're just starting up this new system with John Gruden and Derek Carr. It's going to take a year. Okay, 4 wins, right? 5 wins later. Dennis Allen, brand new head coach. They just got done like offloading all that salary cap space with Reggie McKenzie, taking over for Al Davis.
Yeah.
That was expected for that team to be bad. And then Jamarcus Russell years, like those teams just sucked. But whereas it's like this is reminiscent of 2017. I mean, I would argue last season was also reminiscent of 2017, where it's like you're coming off this playoff year, and then the following year, it's like, well, in theory, we got better. We got Devontae, and then they suck, right? And then after last season, it's like, well, we got rid of what the problem was, Josh McDaniels, and we got way better. We got Christian Wilkins and blah, 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 blah. Only problem was the quarterback, right? Only problem. Well, turns out our offensive line scheme sucks. Our play caller sucks. Everything about the offense sucked. We can't run the ball. It feels even worse because it is worse than last year. Like you just said, it's literally worse than last year. So, yeah, it's tiring. I need one of these right here. I need one of
Yeah.
those.
Just one?
A couple.
Yeah. Need a couple. I think like hold on. I lost my train of thought. Let's get to the comments and then as I find it. Fossey says, sup boys. Raiders
So,
need to go all in on Ben Johnson.
oh yes.
Yeah. I remember what I was gonna say. Right now the Raiders are a dumpster fire. Tom Brady, don't worry, is gonna come in and save the Raiders. The NFL is pulling the strings, working this storyline where anything Brady touches turns to gold. The NFL just scripted it, right? They scripted the Raiders to be historically bad, just horrible, and then yeah, Brady's just gonna come in and save everything. Lecky says, "Sup, bro? Me or him?" No, I'm just playing.
Both.
I know you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, Getsy should have never been hired after he got fired from the Bears.
See, and that's where I was gonna go with like you saying like, oh, we're not trying to shit on Getsy or these other guys that got fired. Like, it sucks that they lost their job. It does.
Like from a human standpoint, you know what I mean? Like I
It
feel for him.
sucks.
It sucks, but I mean, it wasn't working out. It clearly was not.
They know. Like, there was a pretty infamous video from the Bills general manager a couple years ago of like somebody asked him like, well, what? Maybe something was like, or what they asked was something along the lines of like, if Josh Allen didn't work out or whatever, and this team wasn't that good, like, what do you think you would have done? And he was like, I would have been fired. Like, it comes with the fucking job. Like, they know if this is a performance based league, if we don't perform based off of what I'm doing, I'm good as gone. Within probably 2 years. These general managers know it. These coaches know it. And unfortunately, with being performance based, is like really at the end of the day, it's about winning. Like, you could have a top offense, but if you don't win the Super Bowl, eventually people are going to get mad, a la Kyle Shanahan, right? So, not saying he should get fired, but just you know what I'm talking about right there. Like
It's a win now league.
it's a win now league, and I don't know. These coaches know it. And my other thing, as far as like not to laugh in their face and stuff, but like they're coaching in the NFL. I'm sure they want to keep coaching in the NFL, but worst come to worst, they'll easily get a job in college. Maybe not easily, but they'll get a job in a slightly lower level in the NFL. So Luke Getsy, he's an offensive coordinator. He'll easily get a quarterback coach job next season or wide receivers coach. He'll get something.
Easily?
I think so. Especially if you have connections. Like, that's the key. If you have connections in the league, somebody will bring you on. Maybe because they feel bad or because, I like that guy. You know, I know how he coaches. I like him for this role. I'm not going to have him be my offensive coordinator, but shit, he wants to be the wide receivers coach. Cool. Or if he wants to go to college, like Luke Getsy will absolutely be an offensive coordinator in college next year if he doesn't want to stay in the NFL. Somebody would take him, even if it's Cal Poly. I don't know, like some random school, right? Somebody would do it.
Chabot College. No,
Chabot College. There you go. Yeah. So that's not that I don't feel bad. It sucks. Hey, these guys aren't going to be working during the holidays. Like, that's a weird feeling, I'm sure. But I think they'll be fine. Is I guess my point as far as having football jobs.
Yeah. Fossey says last in every rushing category. ... Yeah.
Yep.
Anthony C. tuning back in says Raiders get a top pick without proper coaching staff to develop them. LOL. That's a good point. If they do get the quarterback, who is going to be the quarterback's coach? I will tell you one thing. Right now, the correct decision was made. You do not want Rich Scangarillo's hands on an NFL quarterback.
Absolutely.
What has he done? What has Rich Scangarillo done in the NFL?
When you posed like your displeasure with the Raiders hiring him as their quarterback's coach, you made me nervous about drafting a quarterback. I was like, oh my God, like that could set a guy back, you know? And to Anthony's point, like that's why my leading opinion is the Raiders if they're not going to keep Antonio Pierce, they need to hire an offensive-minded head coach, preferably a guy who is really good with quarterbacks or just uber efficient offensively, like a Ben Johnson, as far as his scheme and his play calling ability, right? But get a guy who's going to stay, because if you get a defensive-minded coach, you hire an offensive coordinator. Oh, cool, he's really good with a quarterback. For example, the Commanders, right? They have Cliff Kingsbury, who the Raiders wanted to get. Well, if the Washington offense keeps playing as good as it is, give it another season, he'll be the head coach of the Titans. He'll be the head coach of the Patriots or whatever team, because that's probably what he wants to do, right? Now, if say a guy like Ben Johnson, I mean, he's stuck with the Lions the past 2 off seasons when he's gotten inquiries or offers, and he's like, no, you know what? I want to stick it out because he wants to be there and he's comfortable and he got a pay raise, right? He wants to win a Super Bowl.
I'd say in the past off season, I don't know if he was as sought out, sought out the year before.
But I know he was a hot name, at least in the sense of like he's a really up and coming name. So somebody might, look towards him and the Lions might have given him a raise or whatever. But point being, it's very rare that a coach is like, no, I'm happy to be an offensive coordinator. I'm going to stay here. That is rare. Like if they get a chance to be a head coach, that doesn't come very often. They're going to take that chance, Point being, don't go with a defensive-minded coach to develop a quarterback. When you need to develop the quarterback, you should have the coach locked in as your head coach, period.
Mm-hmm. So, hold on real quick. Let's see. All right. I'm looking at Rich Scangarillo's career, and this is since 2017, because this is when he started becoming quarterback coaches in the NFL. So I'm not counting when he was an offensive quality control coach for the Raiders in 2009 or same position with the Falcons in 2015. But as a quarterbacks coach, and I'll add offensive coordinator to that, but He was a quarterback coach for the 49ers 2017 through 2018. And I mean, I guess you could say Brian Hoyer was fine. I guess. He was fucking fantastic. Excuse my French. No. CJ Beathard never got developed. Wasn't that good. And then we traded for Jimmy Garoppolo. And the longer that Jimmy Garoppolo stayed with the 49ers and stayed with Rich Scangarillo, the worse he got. That's just how it was. 2018, he got hurt, and then that was the Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard season in 2018. Then he goes to the Broncos in 2019 as the offensive coordinator. How did the Broncos even do in 2019? All right, so Vic Fangio was the head coach. Quarterback, that was when Joe Flacco was the starting quarterback for the Broncos. Do you remember that, Mike?
Hardly. Wow.
I hardly remember that.
Yeah, wow.
Let's see. Hold on. 2019 Broncos, or I'll just put AFC West. The Broncos were 7-9. And they scored 282 points. In comparison, the Raiders were also 7-9, and they scored 313. So,
yeah.
And also in comparison, they were also outscored by the 5-11 Chargers. So, not a very good offense there. I don't know.
Right.
I'm just kind of out on this guy. 2020 Philadelphia Eagles senior offensive assistant. I think that was that the season that they drafted Jalen Hurts and Carson Wentz was kind of on his way out.
2019, I want to say was Hurts, but I could be wrong.
2020 NFC East. Let's see. The Eagles were 4-11. Dumpster fire. They were 4-11-1. Okay, so let's give Rich Scangarillo a little bit of credit. You know what I mean? They at least tied one of those games. Could have been worse.
Right.
And then 2021 quarterbacks coach, and that was they drafted Trey Lance. And Scangarillo did not like Lance so much that he stopped coaching him after 1 year and then went to Kentucky and then found himself on the Raiders 2 years after that. So I don't know. Maybe he was right to not want to coach Trey Lance, but I think that looks bad if you just kind of, the way it kind of looks to me is that you refuse to coach the kid. And I don't know. Maybe I'm biased towards Trey Lance, but I don't know. I just see nothing but I don't see anything great on the resume, is what I'll say.
Right.
But in terms of Anthony's, comment here, the Raiders need to just hand it over to Brady, get people that Brady trusts to run the show, in my opinion, so they can develop whoever they draft at the top of next year's draft. Fossey says, get Ben Johnson. I agree. Get Ben Johnson. I think he's he's super creative, and maybe he benefits from the team that Dan Campbell and that GM have assembled. But man, the offense always looks very good in Detroit.
Yeah.
I think they're rarely shut out, if ever. It's not often that they're shut out.
Yeah.
And they have Jared Goff. You know what I mean? They don't have a superstar quarterback.
Yeah, I think that's kind of one of the more impressive things. Not that Goff is like this. It's not like he was a complete. He's not like a Gardner Minshew or Jimmy Garoppolo. Like he was an ex-first overall pick who just sort of, for lack of a better term, flamed out with the Rams,
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Lions getting him in and with Ben Johnson's help, really turning his career around is impressive. To the point where I could see something like that with the Raiders. It's just, I don't want a veteran quarterback, for example, I could see Ben Johnson coming in and they get a guy, not specifically this guy, because I really do believe he's probably going to retire after this year, but they get a guy like a Joe Flacco, and it's just like, wow, that's a lot better than I expected, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't know who that guy would be besides like I don't know, a Russell Wilson or maybe a Jameis Winston. That's actually Jameis is damn near the perfect example because he's an ex first overall pick, if I'm not mistaken. So
Was he first overall?
I
I
want to
think he
say it
might
was
have been.
Jameis then Marcus Mariota. I
Might have
think in the
been the
same
other way
draft.
around.
No, Mariota went second.
Oh, did he? Yeah, I think
Yeah.
you're right. Anthony C says Ben Johnson is the hot name. Yes, he is. But who does he bring in under him? And why would he even want to go to the Raiders? Yeah, I think that's the
That
big thing is like,
that's the big one at the end there. Yeah.
yeah, why does anybody want to go to the Raiders?
I would honest to God, you know what would make a coach want to come to the Raiders? If they have the first overall pick. If they get their choice of their quarterback for their tenure, you know? All right. Like in knowing, all right, we have the first overall pick. Mark Davis isn't expecting us to go win the fucking Super Bowl next year. You know, he's not even really expecting playoffs. Like, I get my crack at my Super Bowl, my quarterback, same thing, but not really. But I get to develop my guy. I get the time to properly do that. All the meanwhile, building up my roster with my GM, you know, I could see coaches seeing the positive in that. Um, and also bear in mind, like it would probably be very rare that they're choosing between a team who has the first overall pick and a team that was above 500. Like, that's never really going to happen. Um, but I could see there being a team that went like what 6-9, 7-8, like near 500 that fires their coach because for whatever reason they're tired of it. And maybe a Ben Johnson decides, well, that team's way closer to being above 500. I might as well just go there. But still, I think at the end of the day, especially for an offensive minded coach, you got to ask yourself, well, what's the quarterback situation? You know? So if Ben Johnson is doing all this coaching right now, but he's also like maybe got his eye on a quarterback or two in the draft, and he gets an offer from a team who has the first or second overall pick, he might say, you know what? I like it, you know? And then it's, show me the money and who's going to be my GM and so on and so forth.
Yeah, so I mean, here's what I'll say is you want to know what will make coaches not want to go to the Raiders?
What?
Being very vocal on podcasts as one of the leaders of the team saying, "Oh, I think I've been very clear and AP is my guy. I want to play for AP. If it's not AP, I'm out." Or, I don't know if that's exactly verbatim what Max Crosby
Right.
said, but Max Crosby, is like he essentially shut down the notion of any other head coach coming in and taking over the Raiders. That to me just says, hey, if you're another guy, we want this guy, Antonio Pierce, nobody else. Don't even try to come here.
Right. I think for one, that was last year.
Yeah.
Two, I think if we ran back the tape, I could be wrong, but I want to say Crosby probably said like, "Hey, they know who my choice is."
They know who
I
my
don't
choice
know.
is.
Yeah, I don't know if he or anybody else said like, "Yeah, it's my way or the highway." It was more just like, "Come on, man! Like we've been through this before with Rich Bazakia.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how are you going to do that again? How are you going to go pick up some random dude again after this dude made it work?" I think, honestly, I mean, this is messed up a little bit, but like the perfect outcome, I don't know about perfect, but maybe as of what has happened so far, and what is best for the future of the team, the best outcome is, hey, lost season. See, Antonio Pierce wasn't the guy after all, but at least we gave him a chance. Now are you open, a little bit more open to like us finding the right guy?
Mhm. So this is Las Vegas Raiders on SI. This story is by Aiden Champion. Uh, Crosby will consider all options if AP is not named head coach.
Yeah. I want to say I remembered him saying something along those lines. I just I didn't want to quote him without knowing it.
Yeah. Let's see. I mean, it's pretty simple, Crosby said. I've made it very public. I made it pretty honest and clear. And for me, it's Antonio Pierce without a doubt. And then, like you said, I mean, we already had this opportunity a couple years ago with Rich, Bizakia. We had things going in the right directions. We went to the playoffs, almost won a playoff game, but we ended up deciding to go in a different direction and start from ground zero, and that didn't work. Now we're in the same situation. We've got an opportunity to have a guy who's a lifer. Uh,
Raider fan,
he's
life like Raider lifer, I think.
yeah. That didn't sound right there, but I'm sure there's something right there.
But there's probably more. Yeah.
And probably sounds better coming out of his mouth than mine.
Yeah.
He's from Compton, California, been a Raider fan his whole life, former player, Super Bowl winner, captain. When you have a guy like that in the building and then he comes in and has a chance to prove himself, and he does, I feel like he exceeded expectations. Uh, I mean, it would be absolutely ridiculous and insane if we didn't bring back AP and give him an opportunity. I'm going to have to consider everything, Crosby said. Honestly, nothing's off the table. Clearly, I made it loud and clear that I want to be a Raider for life. I want to be here. I want to win. I want to retire here. But I mean, if we go and start from scratch again, I mean, I've got to consider everything.
Mm.
That's very clearly Antonio Pierce, or I need to see about not being a Raider.
Yeah. I think at least that was half a year ago when it was like, well, based off of what we just saw, he deserves the opportunity. So now, and I'm sure there will be a part of Max Crosby coming out of this season. Let's say they win 2 more games. We're at the halfway point. Let's say they finish with 4 wins. And I'm praying that every other team in the league has 5 or more. But regardless, shitty season, right? I can see where Crosby is coming out of that saying, all right, well, I mean, Antonio Pierce was dealt a pretty bad hand of cards on offense, but I think he should realistically be able to see what happened this season and go, yeah, I wouldn't blame Mark Davis for making whatever decision he makes, you know,
Yeah.
because Antonio Pierce got his shot that I was so desperately hoping for, and it didn't work this past season. I could very much see him decide or, determining he should get another year, but I think if he's realistic, he probably will sit there and think, yeah, but like we clearly need a fucking quarterback. Like, uh, it I don't care how cool Gardner Minshew is. Max Crosby has got to be sitting there going, dude, what the fuck, man?
Hey, how done would you be if, like, all right, let's just say Desmond Ritter, like, does for like at least, what if he goes 5-4 the rest of the way? How many games are left? Are there 9 games left in the season? No.
I mean,
Yeah.
we're on week 9, so yes, but we're 2-7, so 9 games in, and it's total 17. So we have 8 games left after the bye.
8 games left after the bye. Okay.
So 4-4, 5-3.
So what if he goes 4-4 and Max Crosby's like, hey, you know what? If it isn't Desmond Ritter, I got to explore all options.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I could see at that point Ritter being like the starter next year after they draft a quarterback, in the first round, and then give it 4 weeks, and then the rookie's going to start starting just like Drake May this year.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There comes a point, like I get it. The players have their opinions, and Max Crosby is very much the face of this franchise right now. I would say, at least
Yeah.
from a player standpoint. So it makes sense for him to speak up. But I just I was with him on Antonio Pierce last year with a lot of wishful thinking of like, man, this guy's gonna get this team going, and all we need is the right quarterback. Maybe give it a year, and then we could draft that guy. But the realism is starting to kick in for me, which is if they don't have an offensive play caller locked in with that quarterback, maybe the first 2 years are awesome, like a Jaden Daniels. But then once that offensive coordinator goes, I've seen it way too much with quarterbacks where it's just Derek Carr. You keep changing the offense, you keep changing the offense. It's never consistent. Like I want it to be consistent. I want it to feel like Jaden Daniels, CJ Stroud, better yet. I mean, this is really wishful thinking, but Patrick Mahomes, right? I'm not expecting him
Yeah.
to be that good, but like you get the right coach and you pair him with the right quarterback, man, good things happen. That's what I want.
My
That's the vision.
my take on the situation, just like looking at it from the outside. So this season versus last season, obviously last season, the entire offseason started out with Josh McDaniels. And then, they fired him about what, halfway through the season, just like, at some point
I
during the
think it was week
season.
9. I think it was week 9.
Yeah, it was around the same time
Oh,
last
it was
year.
around Halloween. It was literally Halloween.
Yeah.
So, yeah, same time.
Yeah. So wait, didn't Josh McDaniel say like he went or he was about to go trick or treating with his children or something like that, and then he got the news?
He had to he had to pull his kids out of trick or treating to break the bad news.
Jesus. Oh man. That's just cartoony. But
Oh.
what's it called? So Antonio Pierce was better last season in place of Josh McDaniels leading the team and getting them motivated. But this season, what it looks like to me, and I'm not in the locker room, I don't know. Full platform, any player, any coach want to tell me why I'm wrong. You can tell, I mean, even any fan watching, if you think that I'm wrong, it just looks like Antonio Pierce doesn't have like, all right, he was better last year than Josh McDaniels, but this year, this is his team. It's no longer Josh McDaniels' team that he's not an interim coach anymore. He's the guy. What's the plan? Is the
I th-
plan now like what is the plan going forward from firing Luke Getsy?
mm,
What's the direction of the team? I don't
yeah.
see the direction.
Well, I'm sure tomorrow we'll get word on who's going to be calling plays moving forward. I
They just
agree,
traded
and
the first round pick for Nathaniel Hackett. How you feeling? All right, that's the show, everybody. Mike's signing off. Yeah.
yeah, no. Uh, I don't know. I think you mentioned something to me. I figured you were going down this road when you were saying all that just now, as far
Yeah.
as maybe some players not playing hard or like I think the best way to put it, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but to me, at least the best way that I can agree with you in one way or another is the morale is really low. You know, I think the team morale is really low. I think Max Crosby isn't really getting home right now, you know, and that's not because he fucking isn't trying hard. It's just nothing feels like it's working right now. I think the overall team morale is low. Players are still making plays. I mean, every week it feels like Trevon Merrick is making a play.
I heard
Uh,
Polamalu had a big hit, this week.
Polamalu, absolutely. I think Jackson Powers Johnson is playing great at center. You know, uh,
They moved him over to center.
Andre James is out right now.
Mm.
Yeah. And I think if I were to go back and like watch the tape from what I'm like hearing, but also a little bit that I'm seeing, uh, it almost sounds like he might be better suited at center for the
Mm.
Raiders moving forward. which doesn't shock me. Like, that was kind of my thought when they drafted him, was like, all right, that's the eventual center of this franchise. Um, uh, Now I'm of course forgetting his name. Delmar Glaze is playing solid at right tackle. There are guys out there that are making plays and like playing good, but I just think from an overall team standpoint, well, first off, the running game impossible. The offense not doing good enough, right? The play calling sucks, but overall the team morale is down. And I think you have this good defense, but if your offense can't keep up with whatever the other team's doing, that's got to just bring down the defense eventually. Like, if the defense is just getting gashed and, gassed, you know, that sucks. Whereas last year it was like, at least when Antonio Pierce took over, the offense had some juice to it and they could run the ball. But this year they can't. Like, they're one dimensional with a shitty quarterback. And that one dimension that they have is passing the ball, and it's not that good, you know?
Yeah.
So I think, at the thought of like, oh, this team isn't playing hard for Antonio Pierce, it's like, well, I don't even blame them, because the morale is way down. The offense can't get shit done. They can't win, period. And they can, but they'd have to be perfect. And the play calling is so bad that they can't be perfect.
They
So it's like,
got
what
a
are you
rough
going to do other
schedule
than
coming up after the bye.
Yeah, yeah. But what are you going to be other than sitting on the sideline when the offense is on the field just going, "Oh my fucking god," like Max Crosby or whoever is just sitting there like, "Wow, did they just have another 3 and out? Damn it. Like, let me get my helmet. Fuck. All right, here we go." My thighs are still throbbing from the last drive.
Dude, at least it's not the Chip Kelly offense, dude. Because all right, when Chip Kelly was the coach, they would go no huddle and then they would go 3 and out. So like the defense would just like finish jogging off the field and then they'd have to go right back on the field, dude.
Yeah.
It was bad.
No, it's not good.
As for Anthony, Anthony's question, I want to address this part. Who does Ben Johnson bring under him? In terms of defensive coaches, Robert Saleh is going to be out there. Could you imagine a pairing that would be like a coaching superstar tandem right there of like Ben Johnson right now with like the top offense in the NFL, the coordinator, and then
Yeah.
Robert Saleh had one of the top defenses in New York, like built a really
At
good
least on
defense.
paper.
Yeah, in
Even
San
last year they
Francisco.
were. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, that would be a good pairing, I think,
Oh yeah.
to get things going. But
Yep.
would it happen? I don't know.
Yeah.
Lecky says Minshew just needs to get benched for the remainder of the season. Oh, so the Jimmy treatment. And start Ritter. We got nothing to lose.
Start Riddler.
Riddler.
The Riddler. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. Forget Desmond. Okay. We're starting the Riddler.
Yeah.
Who the Raiders play after the bye? They play the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Mike McDaniel, I've got something for your defense. Solve this riddle and you can have this interception.
Yeah. What's silver and black?
And smells like crap.
Yeah.
All right. Lecky says, our fans keep saying that we should tank. What's the point of it when we're already worse than it is?
Like, we're already worse than just tanking?
Well, the point of tanking is so that way you get out of the cycle of having that mid-draft pick because you win useless games that do nothing to move or push the franchise forward. Literally, that's been the Raiders for the past God knows how long. It's literally been a cycle of winning games that like they don't even like. All right, do you feel good after winning a game after you're essentially eliminated from the playoffs?
Yeah. It feels good in the right circumstance. Like, oh, I mean, we made the playoffs that year, but like beating the Chargers in that overtime game, like we made the playoffs in essentially out of winning that game. But like,
No,
if
when
we hadn't,
you're not.
I get you. No. I know. I'm just saying, theoretically, if we were eliminated and we could eliminate the Chargers, that feels great. I don't care.
Yeah.
But maybe this season we're going to be eliminated like week fucking 14 at the latest. So winning games after that, yeah, I'm going to be sitting there going, oh my God, why? But I know why. It's because the players want to win. The players want to put good film on tape because if they're going to be a free agent like a Trevon Merrick, like they need to do that to earn their money, right? So I know why. And the coaches want to win too because they want to keep their jobs, or if they're going to get fired, they want to have another job, right?
Yeah.
It's a performance-based business, period. So these players have to perform. I don't care if you tell them to tank or not. Like the players aren't going to tank. You just got to have a bad team, or you got to get lucky, right? Or you got to or if you're the GM, you got to go out and get the worst quarterbacks possible, which maybe Telesco tried that. I don't know, but I'm not going to put words in his mouth,
Hmm.
I just think to answer this question, like the point of tanking, not to say that I'm necessarily saying they need to tank, it's more of just they need to lose, right? They need to stay bad. That's what they need to do, is they need to stay bad and worse than other teams. That's why firing these coaches gives me a little bit of pause, because it's like, well, if they start getting better, I'm going to lose my mind. If they start winning games and they get down from, right now it's the 5th pick. Let's say we end the season with the 7th overall pick. I'm going to be sitting there like, oh my God, like we're not getting a quarterback, period. But the other point to this is currently, ever since really, like, I would even argue while we had Derek Carr, right? After 2021, when John Gruden left, the Raiders entered quarterback purgatory. Because once again, Derek Carr had to figure out another offense, and it didn't work, and he got let go. And then it's Garoppolo. Now it's Minshew. If we don't draft a quarterback this year, it's a Joe Flacco, it's a Russell Wilson, it's a Jameis Winston, and then that doesn't work. And then what? If we don't have the worst team in fucking football, it's another veteran who fucking blows, you know what, at playing quarterback for the Raiders. And then we win 6 games, don't make the playoffs, and we do it all over again. It's quarterback purgatory. Lose. Draft a quarterback. Pray to the football gods that he is the next Jaden Daniels, the next
CJ Stroud.
CJ Stroud. Thank you. I was almost going to say Bryce Young. We do not want Bryce Young.
Yeah.
We want CJ
Yeah.
Stroud.
Careful what
Right?
you wish for, man. I mean,
Yeah.
you
The
could
next,
probably have Bryce Young for like a 5th round pick after this year, like if you want him,
yeah.
Mike.
Yeah. The next Josh Allen, which he was, I think, a 7th overall pick. So, hey, you can get lucky. It's just at the time that he was drafted, it was like, oh, man, that guy's so raw. He's coming from a small school. Like, the likelihood that it works out is pretty low. You got to have the right coaches, right?
And he did.
He had the right coaches. He got developed. And then there's guys like, I think the league is getting better with this, because at the time, guys like Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts, they were drafted lower, like practically 2nd round. Like Jalen Hurts, yes. Lamar was 1 pick away from being a 2nd round pick, in part because the league was still kind of transitioning into like, oh, mobile quarterbacks. Yes. At the time, it was more like, no, they're too raw. We think he should be a wide receiver. Fucking idiots, right? But
I
now look at
disagree,
him.
dude. I think like they've been transitioning to mobile quarterbacks ever since like RG3 came out.
Yeah, but it's been slow because in today's NFL, Lamar Jackson would be looked at as like a top 10 pick. Whereas just how many years ago with him, 8 years ago or something, it was like, yeah, I don't know if he's a 1st round pick.
Dude, that was them. That was them. I was literally Lamar Jackson was one of the quarterbacks that I said, "You know what? That guy is going to be a stud because it's easy to just turn on his Louisville tape and see how good he was.
Right.
He was going to
So
be a star."
right, and that's why I'm like, why didn't he go sooner? But nowadays, those are the guys that are going top 10, top 5, really. So Cam Ward, Shadir Sanders, like, book it, you know? And that's the type of quarterback I want, is a guy that can, if all else fails, he can escape the pocket and make a play. That's the best way to succeed right now in the NFL.
Yeah, like, all right, the reason why I say around the time that RG3 kind of came out is because that was around the time that Russell Wilson also emerged and he was very mobile. And then Colin Kaepernick was like shortly after,
Yeah. And
so there was all that, it was there was a point in time where it almost seemed like the old school versus the new school in the AFC and NFC championship, where it was
yeah,
Brady versus Peyton Manning in the AFC, and then it was Kaepernick versus Russell
Wilson.
Wilson in the NFC.
Yep.
So it was like,
Yep.
you know, that
Yeah.
it has progressively gotten more to, I mean, like you said, they're figuring it out. They're
Yeah.
figuring it
I
out.
mean, Kyler Murray. I know there's another guy who I'm just not thinking of. But I guess my point with what I was just saying is like there are the offset chances that you'll find a quarterback in the second or third round, but just ask yourself like how often does that happen? How often do you get a Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott, Colin Kaepernick, Jalen Hurts, in the second, third round that ends up being a franchise quarterback? Like I was able to name off quite a few right there, but those happen sporadically over the course of how many years, right? Whereas
Yeah,
most of the starting quarterbacks are top 10 picks. And a lot of those top 10 picks don't work out, you know? Uh, oh, geez. I mean, there's a lot of Marcus Mariota didn't work out. I mean, to a degree, Jameis Winston didn't work out. Baker Mayfield for a bit there didn't work out. Like, it's not guaranteed with these
Trey
quarterbacks at all.
Trey Lance didn't work out.
Trey Lance.
Zach Wilson didn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
Mac Jones didn't work out.
Yep.
Justin Fields was a little bit later in that draft. He didn't work out.
Yeah.
Bryce Young has not worked out.
Yep. And I think, there's quite a few of those names that were first overall picks. So it's like, oh, it's not guaranteed that it's going to work. 1000%. Unfortunately, that is true. And if we suck this year, we get the first, second pick, we draft a guy and he's a bust. It's like, well, consider us set back even further. But that's better than signing a quarterback who's at the later stages of his career and then just hoping for things to work out for 2 years and then we'll figure it out when we get there in 2 years at quarterback. Like, no. Like, I want to be settled in at quarterback for the long term, and then in having that rookie contract, you can build up your team, so forth. But a big part of that is the coaching and keeping the coaching consistent. So I think a lot of these quarterbacks who have had struggles and stuff, I guarantee it. Check their resume. Check who their coaches were all their career. I bet you there were coaching changes. I bet. There's a reason.
Greg Lira, thank you for tuning into the show and sharing your thoughts. I see a couple comments from you here. We're going to get to them. What's your idea on Bill O'Brien as offensive coordinator? That's a solid name in the Tom Brady circle. I definitely don't want him as like a head coach / GM. Mike, what do you think about Bill O'Brien?
You're saying that because he was the Texans guy, right?
He was the Texans guy, and he traded away DeAndre Hopkins for nothing.
Yeah. That's definitely a tough one. Let's see. Isn't he with no, he's currently the head coach at Boston College.
He was
I
with the
didn't know that.
Patriots last year as the offense coordinator / quarterbacks coach, and Patriots were not very good on offense last year.
Yeah. I personally wouldn't be too excited about it. I mean, that's definitely the fear with Brady is like, oh, if they just rely heavily on him for hires and stuff, like, I think last week we were throwing out Bill Belichick as an option. And if not, at least you and I have talked about it. But, like, I don't know. I want the hot, flashy guy like a Ben Johnson. I don't want this old Patriots way shit anymore. Like, I like having Brady on board, but I said it last year, like, if they go and hire Belichick, like, that's the most tone-deaf decision Mark Davis could have ever fucking made after Josh McDaniels. right? Like the Patriot way did not work. Why double down on it? I don't necessarily consider Tom Brady the Patriot way. I think he's more of the TB12 method, if that makes sense. Um, and I think he's going to have more of a helm on the quarterback situation than on the coaching situation. I could be wrong, but that's just the hunch that I kind of get. But I would also have to imagine that as part owner, he could easily, if not will be, relied on for all decision making by Mark Davis. But I
Mm.
don't think Tom Brady's going to have anything close to a final say. So
Mhm. Question: is there like a little bit of an electrical sound coming from my end, or you don't really hear anything?
I don't hear anything.
Okay, because right now my computer in the background is doing that annoying sound I was telling you about. But I digress. We go on to the show. Greg says, and he knows how to run an offense and well-groomed quarterbacks like Tom Brady, Deshaun Watson, and Matt Schaub.
Yeah, I think not to like strongly disagree with you here or anything, but I just gave my opinion on what I want, which is the hot new thing, not the stiff old thing, you know. And I mean, saying
Pause.
stiff and Deshaun Watson in the same sentence is not correct politically, but I mean it in the sense of a veteran quarterback is not what I want. So
Mhm.
I've had too much of that recently.
Yeah, Greg says the Raiders can keep AP as long as Bill O'Brien can be the offensive coordinator. I don't know. I feel like that's putting a lot of faith because like O'Brien was just all right. I think the thing with the Raiders right now, they don't have the tools. You know, they don't have the
Mm.
coaching, they don't have the tools. You would essentially be giving Bill O'Brien a, I mean, what is this? A side grade or a downgrade at quarterback from what he had in New England last year? You know what I mean? And maybe a side grade in receivers. You know, maybe a slight upgrade. I'm just saying, like without Devonte Adams, the Raiders wide receivers look sorry. You know, in terms of NFL,
Ooh.
I think Jacoby
Sorry.
Myers is
Yes.
good.
Yeah.
I think
He's been
Jacoby
playing good.
Myers is good, but you know, it was better when Jacoby Myers was the supporting receiver, and now he has to play. You know, the he has to be the alpha.
Right.
Um, Brock Bowers is, you know, probably easily the best target that Bill O'Brien will have worked with since he had DeAndre Hopkins a couple years ago in Houston.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, I just don't know if I mean was Bill O'Brien the head coach when they drafted Watson?
See, that's where I was going to go next. Is what do we know about
He
Bill O'Brien
was.
as the quarterback developing quarterback or coach? Because bear in mind, there's a pretty interesting rumor about Deshaun Watson that came out recently regarding the Texans. Do you know what rumor I'm talking about?
I hope it has to do with football.
Yes, it does. The rumor is that to help Deshaun Watson uh, succeed in the NFL, they integrated the playbook that he had from Clemson, and
Mm,
basically like they basically kept playing the college offense for him as a pro. Uh, and essentially that's why he sucks on the Browns is because he never got integrated to a pro offense. I don't know how true that is. I don't know if that tracks at all. I had just heard it and I was like, wow, if that's true, that is very interesting.
yeah.
Because okay, that if that is true, Bill O'Brien, he can work good with quarterbacks. That's cool, but he didn't develop anything right there for Deshaun Watson, right? In theory. But again, I can't tell you for a fact that it's true. But if it
Yes.
is, I mean, my thing is, and this sounds like a positive for Bill O'Brien, but like, man, Deshaun Watson was amazing on the Texans. Amazing. And then he's out of the league for what, 2 years, comes back to the Browns and just sucks.
He wasn't
Sucks.
as bad as people said last season. he wasn't nearly as bad as people were leading to believe, but he wasn't the Houston Texans Deshaun Watson. I will
Right.
say that because I paid close attention to Watson last year because I was interested in what he could bring, and then also I had him on my fantasy team before he got injured and was out for the season. Uh, and then this year, I mean, he was bad. He was bad this year. That's for sure. And I didn't pay as close attention this year. Maybe I'll feel the same. I would seriously have to sit down and watch the film, but uh, yeah, I mean, Bill O'Brien, if he does have a good eye for talented quarterbacks, I think that could be something like if the Raiders are going to keep Antonio Pierce, maybe the familiarity with Tom Brady and the eye for quarterbacks definitely could. I mean, it couldn't hurt, right?
Yeah. I
Greg's. Go ahead.
I don't know. I don't, not to disagree with Greg here. Like I see the vision. I really do. I just I don't know. I don't see Antonio Pierce and Bill O'Brien as a good match for a rookie quarterback. That's what I think.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry. Greg says Ben Johnson might want to stay with the Lions until they win a Super Bowl. So, all right, I I definitely see the logic there, but if they actually win a Super Bowl, how would Ben Johnson leave that without trying to do it again? Because they got so close last season.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
I
I
think
guess the paycheck, if you get that paycheck right in your face, but like, why wouldn't you try to see if you can't run it back?
right. I think if you achieve the ultimate goal, like I think at that point, from a personal standpoint, like yes, you could stay back and be like, let's do it again, man. Let's run it back. Maybe. But I think from the standpoint of like trying to achieve everything you possibly can, you just achieved that thing. Now it's like, let me do that on fucking ultimate hard mode as the head coach, not as the offensive coordinator. Now I want to do it when it's my team, you know? I don't know.
Well, look at Eric Bieniemy. He never became a head coach. He became an offensive coordinator. He did like a lateral move from the Chiefs to Washington, and it didn't really work out for him outside of Kansas City. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm not gonna lie to you right there. I don't think he ever got an offer as a head coach.
yeah,
He
Ben
got he
Johnson
got
for sure is a sure-handed. He is going to be a head coach next year if
yeah,
he wants to.
yeah, yes.
Fossey says the Raiders are one of the better destinations for a new hire, for head coach. New York, Dallas, New Orleans. Raiders to me is a better pick. Come in, start fresh, and get advice from the GOAT as a partial owner. All right. So I would actually count both New York teams because I don't think Jeff Ulbrich is going to be, the coach
Right.
for
Yeah.
for the Jets next year. And then um, New York Giants might fire Dayball after this year because they are also just a dumpster fire that is not going to get better. That contract to Daniel Jones was a horrible deal.
Yeah.
It was horrible. Um, Dallas, let's see. Yeah, I mean, they're probably going to fire Mike McCarthy if they haven't already done it tonight. New Orleans, yeah, they're pretty bad. Dennis Allen, not. Yeah, man, I don't know. It's kind of weird to me how long they've stuck with Dennis Allen because he was also the defensive coordinator for the Saints Sean Payton was
Right.
uh, while Sean Payton was the head coach, and Sean Payton has since retired, had a movie made about him while he was coaching the Saints. Like had a comedy movie at that. It's a comedy movie starring Kevin James. Has come in as the head coach of the Broncos, and what, he's in like his third year now, second year, probably second.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, my quick thought on this: New York, Dallas, New Orleans. Like, I'd say the Raiders. I would. Oh man, that's tough. I mean, I think from a stardom standpoint, ooh,
You know what the
I think
Raiders
what
don't have?
what's that?
The Raiders don't have the contract baggage
Oh
that
yeah, these
that
teams have.
these teams have,
Yeah, for sure. And I think also like I think
especially the
Vegas.
Saints and Dallas, especially
Yeah,
those two.
yeah. I think Dallas is probably the cooler destination. It's like, oh, the big team. Like you're always gonna be on prime time and shit. But like I Vegas's venue and the between the training facility and the stadium, it's like it's right up there with them. I'd say it's probably better than New Orleans and I mean New York. I'd say it's I mean the New York's field is notorious for bad shit happening. And then I don't know what
Yeah.
their training facilities are like, but I would have to imagine the Raiders' state of the art facility is better. It's and no state income tax, which I don't think coaches really think about, but as far as getting free agents is a help, you know. Uh I think at the end of the day, comparing to these other teams though, like the draft pick relative to a quarterback probably is a big deal. But I think I could see why a coach would say, yeah, the Raiders are the best case for me here because of a guy like Max Crosby, some of those defenders surrounding him, and the ability to bring in this quarterback and get things going, hopefully within a year.
Dude, it's kind of funny because I've heard you talk about, like, the same reasons why, you know, coaches and players should come to the Raiders, and oh, state of the art facility, you're in Las Vegas, no state income tax, and like every single time it's like, yeah, you're not fucking fooling me. Just every single year, dude.
A coach or a player?
Like, all right, uh, I'll give an example. What's his face? Cliff Kingsbury could have came in, was about to come in, and he's like, yeah, you know what? I'll go with the Commanders instead.
Well, and I think to that point, like for me, when he made that decision, my immediate thought was, well, what do the Commanders have? The second overall pick. So who does he get to work with? A high-end quarterback, whereas the Raiders don't, right? Maybe he
Yeah.
saw that, and once the Commanders reached out to him, he was like, "Yeah, I'll go to the Commanders." Shit, dude. You know, I think that matters. I really do.
hmm LOL. Media likes to blow things out of proportion. If a player was really going to request a trade, they would have literally said it. I think probably regarding the Max Crosby, article that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, yeah,
If I'm remembering correctly,
yes.
one thing I will say though is, like, that's pretty blatant. Like, all right, I'm gonna have to explore options if it isn't Antonio Pierce. Like, you know, you know what Max Crosby could have done instead?
I'm
There
sure we
there are
talked about this.
there are 52 other players on the team that, well, I don't know if there was anybody else who was vocal. I'm sure Devontae maybe shared his thoughts and wanted Antonio Pierce to be head coach, and then it only took a couple weeks for Devontae to decide that he didn't want to play for Antonio Pierce anymore. Uh, but, like, I mean, Max Crosby could have just said he's trusting Mark Davis's, like, intuition. He wants to be a Raider. He's going to be a Raider for life. He wants Antonio Pierce as his guy, but if not, he understands. Like, it was full on. Like, all right, this guy, or I'm clearly not happy.
Mm.
You want to make me happy? Hire Antonio Pierce. And right now, I mean, you guys are Raider fans. Are you guys happy with the way things are going this season?
I'm
And
elated.
it's not all Antonio Pierce's fault.
No, it's not.
It's really not all Antonio Pierce's fault.
It's everything.
But I don't know, dude. It's like this is exactly what you asked for, and I felt like it was setting up the fans to have some sort of hope that the winning was going to continue into this season, and it's noticeably worse than last year.
What are you talking about? This is great.
Yeah, yeah, I guess. It's you are like the the Raiders last year were a dumpster, and now they're a dumpster that's on fire. But hey, all the trash is burning, and we're
Yeah,
clearing
the
up
trash is
space.
gone.
We're clearing up space for more trash.
Yeah. Or you could put a boat in our dumpster.
Yeah. Lecky says Andre James and both Colton Miller have regressed due to their injuries. Yeah, that could also be true.
Yeah, I hope not.
Jody Montez says we're getting Mike McCarthy. Mike, are you excited about that? Breaking news from Jody. No, I'm just playing. Jody, thank you for tuning in and making us laugh.
Again, you know what I want, which is the hot new thing, the hot offense, the Ben Johnson, and a rookie quarterback.
Everything about Mike McCarthy is hot, Mike. He's got your name. He's got your name, Mike.
He's starting off great.
Yeah. Greg says, yes, we need a franchise quarterback so we can get over it. So keep Minshew in a quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah. I honestly, it might really depend on the play calling, though. Yeah. Anyways.
Solid Snake tuning in, saying get rid of AP next. Mike, are you doing that right now?
Right now? Wow. You know what? That's funny. I saw the tweet from the Raiders. We have relieved these 3 coaches from of their duties. And everybody's like quote tweeting it saying like they're not done.
Patrick Graham as the interim head coach, and then you guys win a couple games, and then you hire Patrick Graham.
To hire Patrick Graham. Yeah, it's him or the highway for Max Crosby. No, I would give Antonio Pierce his full season to prove his worth, and then you can properly fire him after week 18.
Mm-hmm. Greg really wants Antonio Pierce and Bill O'Brien to be paired up. So, I mean, hey, you're not the first person to come and comment on this podcast no, actually, never mind. The other person who came in was very big on what's his face? Tyson Bagent and Luke Getsy. Just didn't feel like Luke Getsy had the right person to run the offense, for the Raiders. Cameron Ward as the next Warren Moon. Mike is kind of high on Cam Ward. Right, Mike?
Yes, indeed. I think he can be very good.
Yeah, and then Greg says mobile quarterbacks have been around longer than RG3, like Warren Moon. I'm not saying that they haven't been around. Like, obviously, there's the Mike Vicks, there's, Steve Young, but
Randall Cunningham.
Yeah. I'm not saying that there weren't before, but I noticed that there were more at the time. Like, there was RG3, there was Cam Newton, there was Russell Wilson, Colin Kaepernick. Like, that's all I'm saying. And we have gradually seen more. Michael Vicks, Terrell Pryor, Derek Carr in the second round. I hope you're not adding him to the mobile quarterbacks, but no.
I would say with that,
that's where
maybe that's coming from what I was saying earlier of like the Dak Prescotts and the Jalen Hurts. Like, yeah, Derek Carr too. He was a 10-year plus starter in the NFL, like, and he still is. But that doesn't happen every day. And like a guy that was picked like 4 picks before him was Teddy Bridgewater, and at first he was doing really good, and then he just kind of fizzled out and became a backup. And a couple picks
Yeah.
before him, I want to say, was fucking Johnny Manziel. Like nothing's guaranteed. And I think as far as the mobile quarterbacks thing is more just saying the league is transcending more and more towards that, where, 10 years ago it was like all the great quarterbacks are pocket passers. Now it's like, man, at least for fantasy, the great quarterbacks are not pocket passers, but a lot of those guys like Lamar Jackson's are perennial MVPs right now.
Who are the great quarterbacks in the NFL? I want you to name the great quarterbacks, and then I'll count whether or not they're mobile.
Yeah, you're gonna get me right here. Well, Pat Mahomes, who I would argue he can be mobile. He's not
Yeah.
mobile like that, but at least his pocket awareness is god tier, and he is annoyingly slippery.
He's a hybrid.
Um,
He's a hybrid.
he's a hybrid, sure. Obviously Lamar Jackson, perennial MVP,
Okay.
one of the top quarterbacks. Josh Allen, for sure.
Okay.
And now is when it probably starts to dwindle away. Like, I wouldn't say I really, really like Jalen Hurts, but I wouldn't say that he's like a top 5 quarterback in the league.
No. Next.
So I mean, of the next quarterbacks, like in my opinion, some Raider fans won't like this, but Justin Herbert is a top, I would argue, 5 quarterback in the league. And
He's
I would
not
argue
mobile.
he's one.
He's along the Patrick Mahomes mobility,
Right.
you know,
But I think he's more straight line. He's not like able to kind of snake his way around. He's more straight line speed. He's got like the Kaepernick, not like Kaepernick, but he's got the gazelle like long stride once he gets going,
Yeah.
but he's not that mobile.
Joe Burrow's not mobile. But yeah, I mean, to your point, most of the guys that you named, like we probably named the top 5, 6 quarterbacks just now. And like at least half of them were mobile.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't see Ben Johnson wanting to work for Jerry Jones. I don't think anybody wants to work for Jerry Jones, to be quite honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do Cowboy fans even want to work for Jerry Jones? I don't know.
That's going to be very intriguing who their next coach is.
Greg says, I put it all on Luke Getsy, Minshew, and Tom Telesco.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me to give Tom Telesco too much slack after 1 year when it's like he can only build up this roster so much coming out of Josh McDaniels' roster, I think GMs should get a proper amount of time to build a roster with their head coach, So that's why this offseason is going to be very interesting when you consider, there's going to be a new coach in town, or at least probably will be a new coach in town. Will Telesco still be there or not? That's very interesting to me. Anyways.
Mm-hmm. And then last question before we move on. Besides the quarterbacks, what are your views on incoming running backs or wide receivers that the Raiders can target? Since the offense is a major concern, of fixing.
Yeah. I'm dead set on quarterback round 1, hopefully top like 5, if not 2 pick. The positive thing that I can say here is that running back and wide receiver are probably the 2 easiest positions to fill in a draft. Like, they are always there, and running back has become such a whatever the term would be for, less cost-effective position, that you're going to find really good running backs that can start in this league in the 3rd, 4th round, So I think the Raiders can go into this next draft. They could go quarterback, offensive lineman, wide receiver, running back, and you could have 4 starters within 2 seasons, if not 1 season. Like, by the end of that next season, you could have 4 starters. And your offense looks way better, right? Because now you've got those 4 guys plus hopefully soon to be perennial Pro Bowlers in hopefully all pros, but Brock Bowers and Jackson Powers Johnson. Hopefully Colton Miller holds up for a couple more years. Hopefully Delmar Glaze is a really good right tackle. At that point, you probably just need like 1 or 2 guards, depending on Dylan Parham, who, I mean, we haven't gotten to the Bengals game yet, but he's kind of been benched. And then, yeah, I mean, if you keep Jacoby Myers, like your wide receivers are pretty well set, in my opinion. And if you have the right running back and the right run scheme and offensive line play, suddenly the offense looks great. If in theory you have a quarterback playing like a Jaden Daniels or, CJ Stroud, your offense is probably pretty damn electric suddenly. But just because I say, oh, you could go quarterback, offensive lineman, wide receiver, running back, that doesn't mean they're going to knock every pick out of the park. That's the issue, So you just got to hope that whoever's in charge of drafting players is good at drafting players and assessing talent.
Yeah.
And your coaches can properly develop them as they go.
Mm. Yeah, but I say with that, I think we're ready to finally recap the Raiders versus Bengals game. I mean, let's just be honest. That's not the forefront of really the topic of discussion today. I mean, the Raiders, I think, were the worst team in this matchup. I mean, Joe Burrow had 5 touchdowns, Mike?
I believe it was 5, yeah.
Had 5 touchdowns, and none of them were even to Jamar Chase.
And T. Higgins was out in this game.
Jesus.
And so was Zach Moss. And so was the rookie Jermaine Burton, who a lot of people are excited about, but he got essentially benched for disciplinary reasons. And yet still, Joe Burrow was just dicing up the Raiders. He started like 15 of 15 or something like that. Like he was just on fire. I would go as far to say, I know this is a Raiders podcast and obviously 49ers podcast. I would go as far to say that Joe Burrow today probably put himself in the position, not quite the conversation, but in the position to start being put in the conversation soon for MVP. When this Bengals team comes around, which I have felt they will, when this Bengals team comes around and becomes a playoff team, watch Joe Burrow's name pop up in the MVP candidacy.
Let's see his
because
stats.
He's having a good season.
Okay, so this year so far, I mean, 70% completion percentage, 2,244 yards, 20 touchdowns.
Mid-season.
Yeah, honestly, I kind of made a face, but I think that just had to do with the Bengals record. Like before this game, they were 3-5.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that you can be an MVP player on a team that's a losing team. But obviously they're 4-5 now, and you think that they're probably going to turn it around. But I mean, all right, let's talk about the game. So Joe Burrow was 27 of 39, 251 yards. So he didn't even get that much yardage.
Yeah.
He just had a shit ton of touchdowns. Excuse my language. I mean, it's late. I do need to watch my mouth. He had an interception, and let's see. Chase Brown is the one who killed you guys today. 27 carries, 120 yards, and had a receiving touchdown. Dude, that play that Chase Brown made in the end zone today, I thought was very impressive because he put a lot of effort in to outrun everybody. He thoroughly outran his teammates. He thoroughly outran the Raiders defenders, got open, got the touchdown in the back of the end zone right there. Let's see here. Receiving wise, yeah, I mean, Mike Gesicki, 5 receptions, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns.
I was reacting to that just a second ago. I did not realize. I knew he had a good game, but man, that is nice from a tight end.
Jamar Chase, 7 receptions, 43 yards, no touchdowns. Chase Brown, the receiving back. Man, so aside from the 120 yards rushing, Chase Brown killed you guys absolutely killed you guys,
Yeah.
receiving the football. 37 yards. Obviously, I already touched on the
Touchdown.
touchdown. Yeah, Eric All Jr., 2 catches. Drew Sample, 4 catches. Tanner Hudson, 2 catches. Yoshi Vosh, 1 catch. Kendrick Pryor. Yeah, man. Let's turn the page to the Raiders. Gardner Minshew started this game 10 of 17, 124 yards, no interceptions. Did he fumble, Mike? Do you know?
Gardner Minshew?
Yeah.
I believe it was oh my goodness, the DJ Turner. I want to say. I could be wrong. But
Desmond Ritter came in because Minshew just got benched.
yeah.
Right? 11 of 16, 74 yards and a touchdown. So better at least completion wise, but the yardage was not there for similar attempts. But the touchdown was there to Brock Bowers in garbage time. Because that's what
No,
it was.
excuse me. Gardner Minshew did fumble. He fumbled what looks like in the third quarter. And then after that fumble, he might have got one last drive. And then Desmond Ritter came in.
Yeah, and then all right, this Raiders backfield, dude, I don't know how involved Antonio Pierce is, but it kind of just seems like Luke Getsy was all to blame for this. But Alexander Madison, 9 carries, 36 yards, which is fine. That's a first down. That's 4 yards per carry. That'll get you a first down on every set of downs. Amir Abdullah, 4 carries for 12 yards. Zamir White, 6 carries for 10 yards, which is 1.7 yards per carry, which is horrible. And one of them was a touchdown. I did see that Zamir White was used primarily as the goal line back today, but I don't know. I feel like Madison has kind of jumped Zamir White on the depth chart and should just
yeah.
I don't know, dude. He's more efficient. I was wrong at the beginning of the season. I would just ride Madison, dude. Pause.
Yeah, I think they mostly are. It's good to have Zamir White in like a situational thing and trying to get him more carries, but no, Madison's for sure the number one right now. I would just say from this game, Joe Burrow and Trey Hendrickson kind of took over this game. And, like you said, again, Luke Getsy's play calling was an issue. At some point late in this game, if not the third quarter, for sure the fourth quarter, they let Desmond Ritter take over at quarterback. And who knows, maybe they keep that decision moving forward, and Desmond Ritter's the starter in 2 weeks, coming out of a bye week where he gets more time to work on the playbook and everything. Who knows?
Right now is the perfect time for the Raiders to, switch everything out because of the bye week.
Yeah, the bye week and the firings. The playbook's going to be different no matter what.
That's my point.
Yeah.
You clean house right before the bye week. You at least give yourself time to create a plan.
Yep, absolutely. I agree. Hopefully the plan sucks.
Yeah. Jacoby Myers, 8 catches for 105 yards. Good day for Jacoby Myers. Also good day for Brock Bowers. 5 receptions, 45 yards, and a touchdown. Touchdown was in overtime to sort of save his day.
I wouldn't. You mean not overtime? They were very far from overtime.
Garbage time.
Yeah.
Sorry. Excuse me.
But he finally got his touchdown. So
yeah, Harrison Bryant, 2 catches, 22 yards. Amir Abdullah, 3 catches. Ramel Keaton. I don't even know who Ramel Keaton is.
He's one of the undrafted guys. I think he's number 82.
Yeah, he is number 82. He got a catch today, 7 yards. Trey Tucker, 2 catches, 5 yards. I don't know, dude. Out of the receivers, Jacoby Myers, Brock Bowers had a good game. I don't know why they didn't feature Madison more. You know, dump
I
offs,
personally,
screens.
I would feature Trey Tucker more. Like,
Yeah,
especially if the run game can't work, like get the speedy guy the ball, you know? But I don't know. There's really not much else to say about this game. Like they got their asses handed to them. Jack Jones had a pick six. Trevon Merrick again had statistically, I think, a good game. He had a sack in this one. Um, I think Crosby was getting his pressure. Even Tyree Wilson, I saw him getting a little bit of pressure. But you know, they got beat 41-24, and the Raiders are now down to 2-7 going into the bye week in week 10. And I I that's it. Just I don't know. Like there's not many other moves they can make that can like make this team far better. It's not like the perfect quarterback is just sitting out there unless they go and find the next Joe Flacco just sitting on the couch somewhere. Maybe Ritter is that guy, but like I think the difference for me between Flacco and Ritter is hey, Flacco's won a Super Bowl. Not to say that he's going to win another one, but just he's experienced, whereas Ritter is not in the NFL, and of his experience, it was all very bad. Whereas Flacco's had his great moments.
yeah.
Um, I just like I'm rooting for Ritter, but in the sense of like, hey, this proves you should be on a roster. Not, hey, thanks for winning us the games that we really don't need to win and ruining my chances of getting the quarterback of my dreams. Motherfucker.
You know who on the Raiders actually had a good game today?
Is it somebody on defense?
Nope.
Is
Number
offensive lineman?
number 6, Mr. AJ Cole.
Oh,
He had 5 punts that traveled 280 yards, averaging 56 yards per punt, and 3 were down inside the 20.
there you go. And yet the Bengals still scored 41. So,
You gave him hell,
yeah.
AJ.
Yeah. Hopefully another all-pro season from him.
Yeah. That's exactly what the Raiders need. I think that'll solve the Raiders'
They need their
problems is
rookie
if
they need their rookie tight end breaking records, and they need their punter to be an all-pro. We're good.
you know what they say, best player available, right?
Yeah.
Greg says, I knew the Bengals were going to win because they have a powerhouse, but their record says otherwise. I mean, they also play in a really tough division. They play in the
Yeah.
same division as the Ravens. The Browns are a tough defense. And who is
The
the last team?
Steelers.
Steelers.
Steelers are killing it this year.
So they have to play against tough defenses all year, like twice a year,
Yeah. And I
or at
think
least six
honestly
times a
Joe
year.
Burrow might have started a little slow the first 2 weeks, and then the team overall has just started slow, but I really do think like I don't know. I have faith that between Joe Burrow, that offense, the defenders that they have, and Lou Anarumo. I love Lou Anarumo as their defensive coordinator, but I think their head coach is somewhat of a stud as well, and I think they'll just get it. They'll get it to work. I think
Mm,
they'll be the 6th or 7th seed, and it'll be tight, but I think they'll get there.
yeah. Uh, I'm going to jump over to recap. We both got our picks right, and I don't know when the next time that we are going to pick the Raiders is going to be, but we will not have to pick a winner this week. Luckily, I mean we can give the Raiders a break. Let's talk about it, Mike. What do the Raiders need to do in this bye week, or is there anything that you want to see that they can improve on heading into the bye week? I would say they're in a much different situation than the Niners were in this past week when we were talking about their bye week. Like right now, what jumps to me, this offense has to completely change. What do you think?
I wouldn't change a single thing. I'd be losing as many games as possible. No, they've already made the changes that they should make. I'll give them credit for that. Again, like we started off this pod, like letting go of Getsy, Anarumo, or the wrong guy, Scangarello, similar, getting tired,
Man, hold
and
on.
James Craig.
All right, I'm gonna lose a little Niner street cred here. a little Niner cred here, but you want to know how you can lose every single game for the rest of the season?
Bring back Brian Hoyer.
No. Okay. Uh, trade for Kyle Shanahan and just tell him that every single game is the Super Bowl.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll take
Unfortunately,
3 first-round picks, please. Thank you.
yeah, yeah.
We'll take it.
Unfortunately, we won't have our first round picks, and that would be a complete ass backwards move. But you know, at least we have the coach, I guess.
Aaron Lewis said LMAO. At least I made somebody laugh, okay? At the expense of my trauma as a 49er fan losing Super Bowls. But yeah, what were you going to say about Raiders bye week, Mike?
Bye week. I think they've already made the moves, and we kind of alluded to it, but now it's just a matter of figuring out the offensive game plan going forward. Do they go back to a power blocking scheme? I don't know. Do they go back to what worked for them last year? I have no clue. But I think it's really just figuring it out offensively, getting a little healthier, and hopefully all of that shows progress and shows some growth, but not enough to win games.
I had to
What they
I had
need
to
to
put the hat on. Just sorry. Go ahead.
just I don't know. It's such a weird question for me because it's like I don't want them to do anything good. I want them to keep sucking
Well,
ass.
that could be your answer too. You just say, you know what, Raiders, take your medicine.
Yeah. But
Don't make
I
any
like
adjustments.
right. But that's not the realistic thing though. It's, performance-based league. They have to do whatever is best for winning and for getting better, and putting good tape on film or good film on tape. But you know, at the end of the day, they're going to do whatever they can to get better, and that's the right decision, but maybe it's not so wise because at the end of the day, for the future of this franchise, my belief is that they need to lose this year to start winning next year.
Yeah, so coming out of the bye week, it's going to be interesting, I think, for the Raiders to see who is going to be calling plays. Is it going to be Marvin Lewis? Is it going to be Joe Philbin? What do you think, Mike?
My hunch would be Joe Philbin, but I don't know for sure. Again, I think Marvin Lewis was a defensive guy, but I could be wrong. Um, and then, I mean, after that, it's like I don't think they have any guy that was a assistant coach that was a
Scott,
ex
I
play.
mean, it could be Scott
Scott,
Turner.
yes, yes, definitely. That's probably the guy. That's probably the guy. Yeah, was he the passing coordinator,
Yeah, he
passing
is.
game coordinator? Yeah, it's probably him. I forgot. I always forget about Scott Turner. Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll probably be him.
Yeah, I would say probably it's going to be either him
And you
or
know what?
Joe Philbin.
And I think Joe Philbin will be the offensive line coach.
Mm.
I think that's now that I'm thinking about it more. I want to say he's an ex offensive line
Yeah,
coach. That
yeah,
checks
I
out.
think Scott Turner's probably going to be calling plays.
Yeah, and I think Scott Turner might also be like ex quarterback coach, so like he might fill that role with offensive play calling.
Yeah.
Just work really tight with the quarterbacks, basically. That
Why
checks out.
wasn't Scott Turner the play caller to begin with?
Um,
I guess we'll find out in a couple weeks, huh?
yeah. Let's hope we do.
Yeah,
Let us
like
hope.
yeah, Scott Turner's gonna come in, and then we're gonna be like, you know what? Let's
Bring
get Luke
back
Getsy
Getsy.
back. Yeah, get Luke Getsy back in here.
Oh my god.
That would be the most Raider thing.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. In terms of defense, the defense really isn't the biggest problem with this team. I know they gave up 41 points, you know, to a Bengals offense that is just I mean, dude, the Joe Burrow's such a good quarterback. Like I don't know. I mean, the first thing that they can do on defense is get rid of Rob Ryan. How about that? Bill Walsh didn't like Rob Ryan.
Yeah, Rob Ryan's fine. I will be very intrigued by this offseason once we get there, as far as what changes are made and all that shit. But until then, it's just, man, I hope we can get a good draft pick. That's really it.
Um, Dude, I crack up when I hear Lowell Cone, on Grant's show that they do on Tuesdays. I crack up when he brings up like what Bill Walsh would say about Rob Ryan. Dude, like uh I guess when he used to talk to Bill Walsh when Walsh was and this might have been after Walsh had retired, but Lowell Cone would be covering the Raiders, and I guess Bill Walsh, this might have happened just one time, or maybe it happened multiple times, but he called Lowell and he said, I guess don't quote me verbatim, but I swear this is how I remember it. Yes. So tell me about that fat fuck on the Raiders. Talking about Rob Ryan. Dude, he's been with the Raiders so long. Like, he left and then came back, right? Like, I want to say he was an assistant for when Rex Ryan was, coaching in
Oh, I
New
see.
York and possibly Buffalo, and then eventually came back to the Raiders.
Yeah,
Let me
I
look that up.
know. Yeah,
Rob.
I know Rob Ryan was with us like early 2000s, and then he went around, and then yeah, he's been back since Josh McDaniels.
Jesus, the career that he's had. So I'm not even going to count college, but all right. Arizona Cardinals defensive backs coach, 1994 through 95. I mean, Rob Ryan doesn't strike me as a defensive backs coach, but I mean, I guess. Uh, that's a college. That's a college. All right, Patriots, 2000 through 03, linebackers coach. Oakland Raiders, 2004 through 2008 as the defensive coordinator. Then the Browns, 2009, 2010. Dallas Cowboys, 2011, 2012. Saints, 2013 through 2015. Buffalo Bills. See, that's what it was. I wasn't Rex
I
Ryan
remember
the
him with the Bills.
Yeah, Rex Ryan was the coach of the Bills in 2016, right?
Quite possibly. I'm not sure, but quite possibly.
I think so.
That checks
Uh,
out.
Assistant head coach and defensive coordinator. And then he was with Washington, inside linebackers coach, Ravens, and then came back to the Raiders.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anything else you want to mention? Like, they're not going to fire Patrick Graham because at least the defense
Yeah.
isn't a dumpster fire the way the offense has been.
Yeah. I am good. I'm ready to move on.
All right. Let's talk about the Niners versus Buccaneers. The Niners are coming off a bye. The Buccaneers still have not played their game. Maybe by the time this gets uploaded under the Niners section, on YouTube, I'm going to upload it tomorrow. Maybe by the time that you watch this video, the Buccaneers will have already played their game. But the 49ers are going to be playing coming off a bye, and typically that is when they go on their run during the season. I think right now is the perfect time to play against Tampa Bay because their main receivers are out.
Yeah.
You're not going to be having to cover Mike Evans. You're not going to have to worry about Chris Godwin in the slot. And I mean, instead, the Niners are really going to have to focus their game plan on limiting Cade Otton and limiting James McMillan and Sterling Shepard, but I feel like that's a lot less to ask out of the defense than to stop Mike Evans, who just gets 1,000 yards every single year. I don't know how he does it, dude. Mike Evans he's a great receiver.
I would argue he's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
You think so?
Yeah.
Why?
Statistically, he's one of the greats. At least he's on par. Like, he's on pace to get there, and he has a Super Bowl ring.
It's a good argument. Um, As for the defensive side of the ball, the 49ers are going to, I mean, it's unclear as to whether or not Christian McCaffrey is going to play in this game because there has been, I guess, rumors that McCaffrey is going to return after the bye. Uh, I think this would be the perfect week to have McCaffrey back because, you wouldn't have to run McCaffrey straight up the middle against Vita Vea. You could give McCaffrey more of dump offs and maybe focus your game plan on a little bit more of passing, and maybe go with some outside zone runs with Garendo because he has the speed to really get to the edge. I think you can run away from Vita Vea. Similar to like how the 49ers, they have played the Rams. I mean, they play the Rams every single year, and constantly they have played against one of the
Aaron
best
Donald.
defensive tackles in Aaron Donald. And every
Yep.
single time that he would play the Niners, aside from, that NFC championship game, I would say Aaron Donald is consistently not a factor. Bringing it back, Vita Vea, strong, imposing defensive tackle. You know what I mean? Niners can game plan around him. And I think Shanahan just has to have a good game plan this week. I would love to see more end arounds, more, I guess, touch passes, like, receiver comes in motion and, you just toss it up and they take it like on an end around, right?
Right.
I think Debo's got to be a little bit more involved. I know he's been banged up the past couple of weeks, but the Niners coming out of the bye, giving him a little bit more rest, I think bodes well for them being able to use him. This is going to be it's going to be a road game for the Niners. They're going to be playing in Tampa Bay. Let me just double check the time of the game. I don't think it's a primetime game. I want to say it might be a morning game. Hold on. 49ers versus Buccaneers. Yeah, it's going to be at 10 a.m. on Sunday. Yeah, honestly, I think that since they will be better rested, and I mean, this is a must-win game for the Niners. I like their chances going in. How do you see the game going, Mike?
Yeah, I'd say there are a few specific things. It feels like a must-win game for the Niners. They're coming off the bye. In theory, they should be getting hopefully on that upward trajectory of playing consistently good football. But also, like I had said a couple weeks ago, looking at the upcoming schedule, especially out of the bye week, you have a lot of matchups against inter-conference, I think, NFC teams who are also in the playoff hunt. Now, granted, in theory and looking at this division, like the Seahawks got beat by the Rams today, and that I think helps you guys. And I don't think the Cardinals are going to be really a factor in the playoff hunt. But like, if you guys just take care of business this season, the Niners will win the division. And then you don't have to worry about the Packers and the Buccaneers and the Vikings and those other NFC teams who are in the hunt, right? Because you guys got at the very least the fourth seed, if not third, or if you're lucky, the second, right? But beating these teams like the Buccaneers and the Packers and whoever else you might be facing soon in the NFC when you're in a playoff race is very important, which is why I agree with you that this is a must-win game. The Niners are coming off of the bye week, whereas, like you mentioned, the Buccaneers are coming off of playing Monday Night Football this week. That is a very big difference. And the Buccaneers are not healthy. They are down their top two receivers. So their offense is potentially going to struggle. I won't bank on that, but they're not going to be at their peak, that's for sure, against a team that's coming off the bye week. So this is a pretty easy Niners pick for me. And it's not really close.
Yeah, I think the 49ers are getting healthier at the right time. And the Buccaneers, unfortunately, have gotten unhealthy at this time. So you're going to lock in Niners. I'm going to also pick the 49ers to win this game. Like I said, I just like the matchup of playing the Buccaneers right now. Also, I mean, Baker Mayfield, I haven't even mentioned him yet. Baker Mayfield is playing out of his mind this year. He is doing very well. This is easily the best year of his career. Would you agree, Mike?
Yeah, so far so good. Yeah.
Yeah. Baker is playing very well. And I mean, the thing is, I he's been a lot more mobile than in the past, but Baker Mayfield has been one of those quarterbacks where the 49ers have their pass rush has been able to get home against Baker Mayfield. I don't know if they will be able to do that like they have in the past, but I certainly like that over, you know, uh, for example, a couple weeks ago when the Niners played the Cardinals, I had no faith that they were going to get to Kyler Murray. You know,
Mm.
uh, I think they can get to Baker. This will be kind of similar to Geno Smith. You know what I mean? Maybe compare Baker Mayfield to like Baker Mayfield. I think is a better version of Geno Smith, and Geno has better pass catchers than what the Buccaneers are going to have this week. Buccaneers are kind of like makeshift offense right now, and Bucky Irving is even banged up. Right? Is Bucky Irving going to play in the Monday night game, Mike? He's on your
He
fantasy team. You should know.
he might be a game time decision, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I know he's
So
questionable.
Bucky Irving might be the best running back on the Buccaneers. He's certainly the most efficient one and the one who looks the best. And he's kind of banged up right now. So I think the Niners are catching a break in the timing that they're playing the Buccaneers. So yeah, give me the Niners in that one. And I honestly think the Niners have a chance to go on a little run right here. There are two games where I'm less confident, but honestly, both the Packers and the Bills, I feel like struggled today. Let me double check the Bills game. Packers definitely struggled against the Lions, but that's Detroit. They are on a mission this year. Bills game. Bills barely beat the Dolphins, and the Dolphins are not necessarily that good. You know what? I take it back. I don't know if they can keep that run going, but I'd say out of these next 5 games, I see the 49ers. I think they can win 4 out of these next 5 games. Honestly, I think they can beat the Buccaneers this week. I think that they have a good chance against Seattle because it wasn't really even that close until like maybe the end a couple weeks ago. And it's going to be at home this time. Packers going to be tough on the road. Bills going to be tough on the road. And then the Bears at home, I think, is a very winnable game. I'm looking way too far ahead, but I think coming out of the bye, Niners are going to have a lot more things cleaned up. I like their odds.
Yep.
As for the remainder of the show, I'm going to take a couple comments and then we are going to get out of here and call it a night. Greg, kind of kicking it back to the Raiders, says keep Minshew in at quarterback and we will tank like the Jaguars did to get Trevor Lawrence. That Trevor Lawrence pick has not lived up to the hype, personally. Maybe he's playing better than what I personally have gathered, but I mean, I think it's a good plan to tank. Christopher Mostas, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Should the Raiders start fresh with a new offensive coordinator and Ritter, or go back to Minshew and AOC when healthy? I think that's a good question. I think it depends on what the goal is. If they want to win games, maybe a new offensive coordinator and Ritter, or even a new. I mean, it's going to have to be a new offensive coordinator. And Mike and I both think that it is going to be Scott Turner calling plays. If you're talking about next year, Honestly, none of the above. Oh, new offensive coordinator, and then none of those three quarterbacks should be starting for the Raiders next year if they're serious. But if you're talking this year, I mean, what do you think, Mike? If you're talking this year to win games and then to tank, what are you hoping for in those two outcomes?
I mean, obviously we're starting fresh with a new OC. I mean, the way that Ritter has played in the past, Ritter might be our best bet at tanking, but no offense to him, Like, I guess my thing here is like we've seen Minshew win games and like nearly get the Colts to the playoffs last year. This season is a little too late, but he can still win games, And I think Getsy might have been really that bad. So maybe Ritter is the way to go as far as getting us to where we need to go. The problem is no matter who plays quarterback, if they suck, because Antonio Pierce is trying to keep his job, he's eventually going to pull that quarterback. So no matter what, if a guy sucks and I'm sitting over here like, thank God, it doesn't matter because another guy's going to come in and they're going to hope that that guy wins because it's a performance-based league. So we just have to keep barely losing games or something.
Who could the Raiders bring in that could be worse than these three? How could the Raiders add to this quarterback room and make it worse? I'm just trying to think, like, in terms of tanking, like, they would need an announcement, like, Raiders are adding quarterback Ian Book to the roster.
Yeah, Ian Book, like I said, Brian Hoyer, or some guy who's been retired for like 10 years and isn't going to the Hall of Fame, like Terrell Pryor or something like that. You know what? Let's give Jamarcus Russell that chance he's been hoping for the past like 15 years.
Yeah. Anyways, everyone, we appreciate everybody for tuning into the show. Please comment, like, and subscribe. We really honestly, it's awesome. I just want to give a shout out to Christopher, Greg, Aaron Lewis, Fossey, Solid Snake, Jody Montez, Lecky, let's see, Anthony C, and shout out to Mike. Because Mike comes in here every single week, and Mike decided this week he was not going to wear a Raider hat. He said, you know what? I'm not dressing up as a clown this week, okay? They lost to the Bengals, not me. No, honestly, Mike dressed up in the appropriate hat this week, I would say, because like you said, if you're a Raider fan, you need to have a couple of those, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
Mike, any last words before we get out of here tonight?
No, just go have fun this next weekend and not worry about the Raiders losing.
Yeah, the Raiders cannot hurt you this upcoming weekend. Well, actually, they could. Anything can happen with the Raiders. So I'm not even going to say that because I'm not even going to put anything out into the universe. You guys know, as you guys are Raider fans, that anything can happen. And we got one more comment at the buzzer. I wish that I had the mental capacity to pronounce this right now at this stage. It's almost 1:00 over here. I'm going to try. I'm just going to
Oikamlad Noled.
Oikamlad or Oikamlad.
Or
I mean, it's cool.
Like
it's a cool name.
I've
never seen that before. So please excuse me. Thank you so much for checking out the channel. We really appreciate it. I'd rather rolled in AOC. Yeah, I would have rather rolled in AOC. Wanted to see more of him.
I'm not good. I'm too tired, dude. Yeah, I don't disagree with him. I like Aiden O'Connell, and I'd like to see more of him. But I just want whichever quarterback's gonna lose us the most games, man.
Yeah, I think Aiden O'Connell right now might give you guys the best. Well, all right. I don't know if he gives you the best chance to win. I kind of still feel like it might be Minshew. I think Minshew might still give you guys the best chance to win, but like in terms of having higher upside of a player who might be something for the Raiders going forward, like Aiden O'Connell might still be the long-term backup for the Raiders. You know, like there is still
Mhm.
that going for him. So I think in terms of that, you would want Aiden O'Connell out there more to get experience and like not just be a you know I guess some guy who's just going to come in and just struggle every single time that he comes in relief. You want him to at least get something under his belt, but shout out to Oi Kamlad. I I hope I pronounced that correctly. I do not want to come off as disrespectful in any way. So, but everybody, that's the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to be live next week to talk about the 49ers hopefully kicking the Buccaneers' ass. And I mean, hopefully no bad news, no bad news for the Raiders in their bye week. I hope everybody has a great night or morning wherever you're tuning in from, and depending on what time of day. We appreciate the support on the channel. We will catch you guys next week. Have a good night.